Welcome to the EmpowHERment Show, a podcast designed to empower women like you to take control of your lives, make informed decisions, and redefine success on your own terms, beyond the noise of influencer culture.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the EmpowHERment Show. We are so thrilled today. We have a very special guest. Our friend Nancy Robles is back. She is a clinician, and she works with advanced cardiac failure patients. My goodness, maybe I got that right.
You got it.
And today's episode is for anybody who's ever taken medication, gone to the doctor, or wondered why women are still getting dismissed in clinical settings. So we are going to take a deep dive into the world of clinical trials, what they are, who they serve, and who they don't serve. And our host through this is going to be Nancy. So, Nancy, love to hear a little bit from you about why this matters, why this is important for all women, why this is important to you. How did you kind of get into this? And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the gaps in clinical trials and why women should be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nancy, if you want to kind of give us a little bit of an overview, what are clinical trials? You know, how have you interacted with them, and what should patients know about them, especially women?
Of course. So I've been in the healthcare system for over 20 years, and I would say the first half of my career was in a non-academic medical center, meaning that doctors follow guidelines that they read from research that's done at other institutions. But I noticed that those guidelines would get kind of further away and be replaced by instinct or practice. Oh yeah, you could start this if you want, and the guidelines were not followed. And now that I work at an academic research institution, every move we make, what is the evidence on this? What is the data on this? And if we don't have data, we really have to think about, why are we prescribing something, or why are we not prescribing? Why is this patient not on all 4 medications according to the guideline? Why is he only on one? So we need to work on that. And I would say, looking at both scenarios, working in an academic medical center versus non-academic medical center, I much prefer working in an academic medical center and research institution, just because the science is just, it's valued. Everything we do is about the science. Whereas in the other scenario, it was more about getting through the day, surviving, getting patients through. So it's way more rewarding to work in this environment. Also, you just learn constantly, and you get some of the same training that fellows receive, and that medical students receive, and that researchers receive. And so this is how I have no choice but to know about clinical trials and to identify patients that would qualify for clinical trials in my setting. Our program has been PI, our physicians have been PIs for several medical trials. It's not just medications, but there's also devices, there's types of surgeries, et cetera. But this is my life. I'm constantly, okay, so this patient, the medications didn't work. He can't get a transplant right now. What else do we have? Well, what about that clinical trial? Or what about this? And so it's just, yeah. And that's how I'm involved. And that's how I, talk about research every day in my practice.
So when you have patients who are coming in and they are someone who's in some kind of heart failure or somewhere on that path, you don't always go immediately to transplant. Sometimes it's a clinical trial instead, or you look for something that they could fit into.
Yeah. You want to prevent transplant as much as, you want to delay it as much as you can, because the heart transplant will last 10 years. And if you're a young person, we really want to give you all the medical therapy that's available to prolong your life, to get you further away from transplant or prevent it. Because if you're 20 and you need a heart transplant now, that means you'll only survive till 30. You might need another heart transplant. We don't know if you'll survive it. So we rather have a 20-year-old be on the full medical therapy, or research, novel therapies, and live longer and push out that transplant so they can have a longer life.
Is that an average, or is that best practice? Like, where does the 10 years
The
come
10
from?
years,
Because I feel like
it's from
breast
data.
implants last longer than that. I mean, I just didn't know that it was that brief. 10 years goes really
Yes.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some patients, it's longer. But I would say the average, when we educate our patients about transplant and what to expect, we give the average of 10 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there are patients who, get to the 10 years, need a new one, and get a second transplant, and they do well.
Wow.
Gosh. And then you have to go through all the
It's
recovery and, the journey after getting a transplant over again.
it's really incredible
Yeah.
to see what people survive. I mean,
Wow.
psychologically, physically,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Maddie, do you want to talk to us about toxic trends?
Of course. I always love to talk about a good toxic trend. So Nancy, I am one of those doom scrollers that's perpetually on the internet or, on social media.
Chronically online.
Absolutely. It's going to kill me someday. And, I wanted to ask you about one that I actually am especially passionate about because I have had, and we've talked about this, various health issues over the years and never really been able to get a clear answer, let alone any sort of guidance that was remotely helpful from most doctors I worked with. There is this trend around biohacking online. I'm sure you've all heard of it, right? You'll see an influencer telling you to take whatever supplement or to try the keto diet or to do fasting or to do cold plunges every day. And what really bothers me about this is one, I mean, these people have no credentials or basis to really be giving you this advice. And are oftentimes, we just talked about the creator economy and influencer culture on a episode that came out last week, actually. And, it's just really dangerous, the misinformation. But what disturbs me about it, especially as a woman, is that a lot of the recommendations they're giving or, the products they're recommending were tested by or for men. And there's no data to support that those treatments are going to help women. So cold plunge as an example, total craze. Everybody is you should have your own little thermo whatever in your house, and you should be doing that every morning before you've had breakfast, after you've worked out, when your body is in stress mode. And for a woman, the spike in your cortisol that can generate can be incredibly damaging. But you just see all these people online telling you oh, it's a fail safe, it's gonna cure everything. So I would love to hear your thoughts, Nancy, on this biohacking culture and, all the misinformation out there right now.
Yeah. Any new recommendations or ads that I see, I make sure to look up the data. Basically, what are the clinical trials? What is science shown? And you want to make sure that you're going to a reliable website. So you wouldn't want to go to the website that sells the cold plunge pools.
Because they have an agenda. They're trying to sell something.
So you want good evidence research articles that tell you the data.
Peer reviewed.
Yes, peer reviewed, exactly. Reputable, and read the data for yourself. And yeah, every study will show what percentage of patients were a certain age, what percentage of patients were male, female, race, etc. But you're absolutely right. There's just so many trends, and it's a sales thing where oh, look at this, it's shiny and new and everyone's doing it.
Or just the TikTok challenges, right? That seem fairly innocuous and people do them for clicks, but then even just silly things there was a while people were eating cinnamon, which can kill you if you
or drinking lots of water.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, these seem innocuous and they seem silly, and some of them might be dressed in a veneer of health, but don't do everything you see on the internet.
Yeah.
And
the sad thing is, Nancy, I didn't want to interrupt, but you were talking about, all the research that you do and how, diligent you are, obviously, given, the career you've had. But the sad thing is, I would venture to guess 99.9% of people do not go do that additional research. They just want to see whatever they want to see that the algorithm is pushing them and take it as God's truth.
Yeah. And I think that thankfully social media has helped get people online. And I've actually, made my algorithms to be science focused. And, I follow reputable organizations and scientists, et cetera. But I think it's okay for people to go online and do their own research and then come to your doctor with questions.
Yeah, that's fair. We talked
Yeah.
about that with you when we discussed GLP-1s. You know, if somebody sees an advertisement for these drugs, they now can have that conversation with their doctor around whether it's right for them. And like, yeah, so awareness is a positive for sure.
Yeah. And, you know, it just depends also on the population that you are referring to, because I work with very educated patients. They come to us with spreadsheets and they've read the studies and they have really good questions. And that's actually very helpful. It's not a bad thing at all. But then you have patients who have never read anything, who have never, you know, asked anything, and you're trying to educate them starting from ground zero. It's really challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, that I think it's a huge issue, that piece of it, like you're saying, that, you know, no education starting from ground zero, because I feel like right now it's like lately the last few weeks, like my Instagram has been feeding me like mushrooms, like, you know what I mean? Like mushrooms for coffee and like mushrooms.
I was going to say, like, which kind of mushrooms?
Yeah, it's like mood altering, and I guess you can order them like just online.
Energy.
Yeah, energy and like probiotic, or like, I don't know. But I have gotten so many of these. And then the other one that I keep getting recently is something like about like ADHD, like to like I don't supplements. But like, I'm assuming that none of the, because they all say like FDA has not, you know, like,
I would say with
I'm like, girl, send me that ADHD one.
Supplements are not FDA regulated.
Right.
So to that point, can you talk a little bit then about clinical trials, like the trial phases, who is involved in them, like how do they come about? Like, it would be great to get a little bit of baseline information so that when you see these folks who are like, oh, in clinical trials, it showed this, we understand a little bit more what some of those checks and balances were to get to that point.
Definitely.
And can you also, Nancy, I think something that, you know, when I was researching clinical trials that shocked me was that like back in the 70s, speaking of the FDA actually banned women who were of childbearing age from participating in clinical trials because they were worried that about birth defects for their children. But then the repercussions of that have been that women have not been included in clinical trials. So, because like most women who are of childbearing age might end up having a kid one day, might not. But like that pretty much excludes half of our population. So yeah, we'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, clinical trials is how we get approved medications through the FDA. And, you know, you have your pharma company that is interested in selling their drug, and they have all the data, preliminary data that shows that's safe in animals, effective. And so then you could also have a biotech firm, and then you have your academic institutions, you have clinical research organizations that ensure that the trial is being done safely, following the laws, following rules, and including appropriate number of, you know, representation, whether it's gender or race. And then you have your clinical sites, like where I work, and the PIs that.
What are PIs?
That I work.
You mentioned that earlier.
A principal investigator. Basically, it's the doctor in charge of the trial.
Okay.
And he sees all the patients, and he's basically taking care of these patients that are taking this drug. My role has been my PI and I share the patient, and I see them in a non-research setting, and he sees them. So sometimes we'll have to say, no, this is a research visit. Don't look up, you know, we're blinded to the echo. And so, and I might know something, and, you know, he can't see that because that's the way the trial was designed. And sub-investigators are those that work with the principal investigators. So there's currently a trial for a genetic form of cardiomyopathy, and it's an infusion, it's gene therapy.
Can you explain really quickly cardiomyopathy for our listeners?
Yeah, so your heart is a muscle, and any disease that affects that heart muscle is called cardiomyopathy. And so it's basically a general name for heart failure from all different etiologies, reasons. So you could have a genetic predisposition, or you could have heart failure because you drank alcohol for too many years, or you could have heart failure because of an infection that you had. So cardiomyopathy refers to all of them. So there's this one genetic cardiac condition And so the PI is the physician, and the sub PI in this situation is one of the nurse practitioners. And so, you get to learn a whole lot. I'm currently not participating in any clinical trials as on the research end of it, but I do work closely with the research team, and I do know, what patients should be offered clinical trials. So phase one is when you assess the safety of the drug. So this is usually the manufacturer. They study the drug, how the medicine is metabolized in the body, how long it stays in the body, what does it do to the heart, and all of that.
And this is on human testing?
No, it's usually, but
On
very
human
few,
patients.
like 20 to 100 healthy patients.
Okay.
And
Mostly men?
it depends.
Depends. Okay.
It depends. Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit
Healthy
more.
white men too. Yeah.
But phase one, once the research study starts, phase one already has to meet all the legal and ethical requirements by the
Okay.
IRB. And thankfully, we have now processes by which the FDA can tell you, you don't have enough women, you need to get more women before you get started. Or, in your outline, you're listing, 100 volunteers. That should be X man, X female.
Is that fairly recent, the
Yeah.
regulations around women requirements?
Yeah, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I'll clarify later, but it was 93 where one of the organizations made sure that was.
There was Congress passed, because I was very interested in this. They passed the NIH Revitalization Act, and at that point, they changed the compliance regulations around gender representation. But it's still very murky from what I've read. Anyway, we can carry on there. But yes, go on to phase two.
And that's one, one advocacy part. There are other organizations that are also working together to try to push forward representation of women. So then you go through phase two. It's just a lot more patients because phase one looked really good. We have something here. Or phase one could flop. Phase one could be like, there's no difference. So, but if you get enough, if you get through phase one, you go to phase two, you get more patients. And phase three, so phase two helps determine what dose, how effective is it. So just a lot more detail. Phase three, you have your dose, you have your plan, you just need a ton more patients, right? And that can last several years.
When you say a ton more, like how many are we talking?
Thousands.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so people can be in this clinical trial for multiple years.
Yeah.
Yeah. One example in a drug that is now has been approved for 3 years, and we participated in phase 2 and 3 clinical trials for it. So some of our patients enrolled in the extension study, which means once they got approved, they continued to be in the study. So they didn't have to pay for the drug for like 2 years or something like that. And so, so those are some of the benefits of, enrolling in clinical trials is you could get testing for free, you could get drugs for free, therapies for free.
And I know sometimes our clinical trials include placebos quite a bit.
Yep.
If you get to phase 3, can you still be on a placebo, or like where does that end?
I think so. Yeah. And,
Wow.
that's one of the things is that what I would say.
I have no idea too that you're on.
Without jumping ahead, if you're interested in, I have these migraines that nothing has worked. This organization, this, academia has this trial for migraines. One of the things you want to ask is, what is it? How is it going to help me? How is it different than current therapies? But you also want to ask, will I know if I, is it possible that I'm getting placebo? And you don't know. With some drugs that are really effective, and it's really funny because people will say, I know I'm on it because I feel so different.
Wow.
And other patients will say, I'm probably on the, placebo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is honestly, it makes me kind of sad to think about those patients who are, just.
But they're still helping. Placebo patients are vital because then they help support the evidence that this drug is so effective, and then they can get it post-trial.
Right. I just mean, what if it could be life-saving given like whatever complication or disease or whatever it is somebody's suffering from. And
There
like
are
time.
compassion approvals. So if a drug is showing to be very effective at kind of like how our vaccines got approved in, within a few weeks, because it was so good. It was evident that if patients don't have access to it now, they're going to suffer.
Wow.
So there is an emergency authorization that you can request from the FDA and they'll approve it sooner.
Oh,
Nancy,
that's interesting.
do you know when a patient's on placebo?
It depends on the drug. The drug that I have experience with the most is very effective at treating symptoms. So these are patients that because of their heart condition, they couldn't run uphill or they couldn't go upstairs or they couldn't walk on incline and now can do all of that without any symptoms. So this drug was just so effective at that you could see the difference between the patients that still can't do any of that and the patients that are now doing that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So then you knew, right? Even if you don't have the data, you don't know what the echocardiogram looks like, but just based on symptoms.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But it depends on the trial. There are trials where it's really hard to tell.
Yeah. When it comes to the people selected for these trials, what does the selection process look like? Like before, when you're doing the initial 100 people, and then when you're adding thousands of people, like how do these researchers select?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you all wanted to talk about women being represented in research because it didn't occur to me. I remember learning that there were special populations, and one of those was women. Pregnant women is a special population. They're protected. People with mental health are protected because you want to prevent them from being taken advantage of or doing something that they're not fully aware of. And the study that you mentioned earlier, the drug was known to cause birth defects, and so researchers decided no more women because we don't want birth defects. But they didn't think about the benefits that the women are missing out on, right? And that went on for decades.
And that extended to like all trials too. It wasn't just that particular drug.
Yeah. So if a drug is going to be for both men and women, it should be equal representation. What current trends are, I don't know. You have to look at each trial separately. So if you want to look at ibuprofen, how many women were tested for back pain or headaches? You can look at the actual research, and I'm sure it's a quick Google search or ChatGPT search as well. But so medications that are general, like ibuprofen, antibiotics, it should be equal, right? We should be men and women.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if it's a medication that's only for women, it should be only women, obviously. But we have the example of aspirin that we talked about. And aspirin was tested in men to prevent heart attacks, for treatment for heart attacks. And then it was, found to prevent further heart attack. And so then it was a rule, a guideline for anyone having a heart attack. However, not enough women or none were included in that study. So then women that were having heart attacks were not having the same benefit because then they found that aspirin actually in women works better at preventing stroke, like a brain stroke. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, thank you for helping me revisit my daily aspirin regimen as a cardiac patient.
And talking about women and symptoms and our differences. So we're biologically different, right? And yes, there are hormonal fluctuations that is one of the main reasons why researchers don't just put a ton of, equal is because if there are hormonal, because of our cycle, if there are hormonal influences, that could interfere with the data, then it's not a good study for them. So talking about heart attacks is when they designed the guidelines for, or when they began teaching, this is a heart attack for men, chest pain pain in the middle of the chest. It feels like an elephant sitting on my chest, sweating, like the syndrome of symptoms of a classic heart attack. Well, if a woman comes into the ER and saying, I just have not been feeling well the last 3 days. I'm really tired and, I don't have any appetite. She's not going to get an EKG. Mm-hmm. Hopefully she would, but she's not. And so because we don't present the same way, we present with very vague symptoms.
And
for
you're
whatever
also not
biological
going to get rushed through the ER with that.
No,
You're going to sit.
you're gonna get sent home and told that you're having anxiety and you should go see
always an
a
anxiety
therapist.
issue.
Yep.
Yes. Big, and so I really applaud. I was in Italy once and I was 40 and I had, just stomach issues and they insisted on doing an EKG on me. And I was like, I don't need an EKG. And they were like, you have to have it. And, they were Italians and they were like, if you don't want the EKG, then you can't be seen here.
Wow.
But I was like, this is great, because
they want to make sure you don't have a heart attack on them.
Yes.
Now, have you seen, Nancy? Because I know I'm 43 and I have my first practitioner ever that looks at my medication in the context of my cycle. Like, okay, we're starting our period. We haven't had our period. You feel this way before and after. And she's amended how much of a medication I'll take on a given day based on where I am on my cycle. And it has made like a really significant difference. And I'm curious if you have seen or even heard of any clinical trials that have bothered to do that, or if it's just sort of this like, I don't know, women are complicated, uteruses are fucking weird, and then we just kind of like move on, or what?
Yeah. And hormones are so unpredictable. You can't predict them. Even
Tell
if
me
you
about
get a
it.
hormone test right now and it says your, estrogen is this level, an hour later it might be completely different. So that's why testing for what your hormone levels are is just not, it's a waste of time. But your practitioner, that is next level. I like that. That's amazing. Yeah. I have not done it myself, heard of it being done. I would say in OBGYN, it's probably more of a practice, but not in general medicine.
Yeah.
Right, because we have like a regular text thread where she's like, if you have breakthrough bleeding, if you have a headache, if you feel bloated, if your nipples are sore, I mean, not to get like TMI but for the girlies, like you're like, my boobs aren't normally sore this time of month or whatever. She's like, text me immediately. So, but it requires that level of circular feedback.
And this is actually a big challenge for us in heart failure because when your heart is weak or stiff, it doesn't pump blood appropriately and it can cause you to retain fluid. And so we teach our patients, weigh yourself every day. Don't eat salt because salt holds on to water. You're going to get bloated. Your heart can't handle that much. And so, we teach women, weigh yourself every day. Let us know if you gain 3 or more pounds in one day or 5 or more in 1 week. But when you're on your cycle, like you're always gaining or losing. And so these poor women stress out so much because it's up and down, up and down. So it's very challenging to manage heart failure in, women that are still premenopausal.
Right. Am I dying or is my period coming early?
Right.
Like,
so unfair.
yeah.
Do you need, I took Lasix and, so it's
well, and then
so
there's
tiring.
other things like complicated, like birth control complicates all of those things. IUDs, depending on which one, that can add different hormones. Like there's a number of different things. And I feel like the conversation about, maybe it's just because like I'm getting to the age where it's a conversation, but I don't recall hearing conversations about hormones or hormonal changes like in the last 20 years. Like it seems like it's just now we're starting to have those conversations.
Yeah. And even I feel like, I've been on various blood pressure and cardiac meds for like 4 or 5 years. And when I first started, it was like a 2-month window of trying to figure out if something worked because of that, right? Why are you retaining water? What time of month is it? Have you started your period? Is it coming early?
Right.
It's like, and I'm like, well, my blood pressure's down, but my feet look like Tweety Bird. Is that my period or is it the meds or is it both? I don't know. Let's give it another week. And you're like, this feels really sexy, actually.
Yeah. And the doses for blood pressure medications for men and women, the starting doses are the same. But I know that if I have a little old lady who weighs 90 pounds, I'm going to start with the lowest dose possible.
Yeah.
First of all, she's older. Her kidneys don't work as well as, a younger patient. And she's underweight. So she's probably going to have a strong response. So those are considerations. But I don't think that we think of our cycle or differences that we can't really pinpoint, but are biological.
Or
like,
wait, right? Or weight, right? Like I've
Like,
lost 48 pounds in the last 2 years. So I know I have to go back in and look at my meds, right? I was like, I got up from my office desk too fast the other day and I was like,
Izzy.
might be time. It might be time.
Yeah.
But there's not like a
So
flag for that.
I prescribe GLP-1s quite a lot for some of our heart failure patients that are obese. I recommend it. And something that we are seeing more frequent is as soon as they lose the weight, once they start losing a significant amount of weight, their blood pressure drops. So patients will write and say, my blood pressure is 86. And I'm like, okay, stop this and stop that. You cured your blood pressure with the weight loss.
That is all from a GLP-1. Yeah.
And going back to women's biology, there are other things that must be different that we don't know and we can't pinpoint yet in clinical trials or planning. If we remember the Ambien trial, so Ambien was tested mostly on men. And once it went commercial and when men and women started taking it, women were falling asleep at the wheel. Women were just,
like literally
zonked out.
I feel like we had a legislator who like started a freeway chase on Ambien or something.
Yes, because it can make you sleepwalk. I ate a sandwich once, not knowing, because I took an Ambien before. And then I was mad because I had gone over my calories.
I ate a sandwich once. I was like, where are you going with this, Nancy?
So I was with someone and I ate this person's sandwich. I took it out of his hand, ate the sandwich. And the next day, he was like, you ate my sandwich. And I was like, no, I didn't. You ate 2 sandwiches.
Somebody's sandwich. Who was this person that you stole the sandwich from?
A friend.
Okay, so not just like some stranger on your street. You were like, that way looks real good.
A friend I was traveling with, yeah.
That sounds like something that I would do too.
And I guess I was like this, and I just grabbed his.
I mean, hey, if you're hungry, right? I when I woke up this morning, we're recording this the day after the 4th of July, and we had a lovely festive 4th, just too much fun. And I woke up this morning and I wanted nothing more than In-N-Out. Like that was just like what I was craving. So I would steal that out of somebody's hands right now. That would.
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah.
And going back to the Ambien example, this led then to a change in label for dosing for women to be half of that what it is for men. And had more women been included in the phase 1 and phase 2, we would have had less women killing themselves while driving, for example. So that is the price you can pay. And
So there are real consequences for not having adequate representation in these trials.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it comes to like birth control or like any sort of hormonal drugs of any kind we're taking, something that's really concerning to me is that like hormones, are very misunderstood, underinvested in terms of like research. And as we get older, they become more and more difficult to control and, get your life kind of like in order around. Like I just 30 this year, and I feel like over the past year, like everything changed for me. And it's been really, really tough.
If you are listening to us, we are all just smiling. All of us over 40 girlies are just smiling at our friend.
It gets worse, bitch. Good luck.
Right. If my Botox wasn't still evening out, I would like be raising both of my eyebrows at you right now.
Right. And by the way, you have all the right in the world too. Because yes, I know I am just a babe in the grand scheme of life, but like, hitting 30, everything has changed over the past year. And I've been taking the same birth control for like 15 years. I've been on the same pill because it's like I've never had an issue with it. Like my periods were very normal. Never got like acne, never had weight gain or like significant mood changes. My husband might disagree, but anyway, so I've just been on the same pill. And over the past year, I feel like I don't know, I've just noticed my body is not responding as well, or just things have changed. And I'm curious, Nancy, for your thoughts on like, I went to my OB when I asked her about it. She was like, well, she didn't really have any advice. She was like, okay, well, you can go off of it. And I'm like, yeah, but then I might get pregnant and I don't want to go on a new birth control because that could be a disaster. And it was kind of just like sorry, girl, like this is just.
Did she give you any alternatives, any other options?
Going on like the rhythm method and doing like natural or try. She said you could try another birth control, but I don't want to try another birth control.
Oh.
So I was asking, like, I was trying to get more information about, like, why is this happening? Is there anything I can do to, you know, deal with like the symptoms that I'm dealing with? And, you know, she didn't really have any concrete guidance for me. And like, that was kind of, you know, very frustrating and disappointing because I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to keep suffering. And it just kind of feels like with women, like if you're not doing well with your hormones, they're like,
that was like the Catholic Church guidance. Like, walk a calendar and do the rhythm method, girl.
Right? Which, like,
what I've observed
and like
in my patients, and that I think is a good practice, is if you don't get the answer you're looking for with one provider, go to another provider. I tell patients all the time, they tell me I don't get along with my primary care doctor. I was like, get another one, get someone different until you get the one that matches.
The whole process of getting another doctor, which like, it's just slow, but anyway.
Like, it's like getting a new boyfriend, but like at the end of the day, when they suck, you got to move on.
That's facts.
That is,
and you know, and if a doctor ever told me to like try the rhythm method, that is the most like insane advice, because like I came to you because I'm on birth control, like I am trying to family plan, like you know what they call women who are on the rhythm method? Mommy.
Well, okay. To be fair, I actually do have, Sam. That's how we got Ashley. I do
23 this year.
How much? How old?
23.
She's 23. Wow, that's crazy.
The anniversary of Sam trying the rhythm method.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we remember. But no, to be fair, I do have some friends who have been using the rhythm method for years and they haven't gotten pregnant. Like they like have it down to a science because there's
there is, if you want to do that, if you want to track that and you want to keep your temperature and if you want to take detailed.
That's the thing. You have to be.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, so
it's a lot of work. I am not a scientist. Science was never my thing. I only passed science class because Mr. Gibbons was hot and I stayed after for every extra credit opportunity.
That's awesome.
I am not a scientist.
No, it requires like scientific level of attention. And anyway, like, so I know I could do that. And like at some point I'm going to need to, because at some point when my husband and I want to have kids, like, okay, I'm just going to step into the unknown. But it just feels like, it just drives me crazy that men don't have to worry about like what might happen if you change these things. I'm like, God, imagine. Didn't they do trials for like men's birth control too? And they were like, they didn't like side effects, so they canceled them.
Yeah, they didn't like cramping and headaches.
I'm like, oh.
Well, in fairness, imagine how insufferable a man would be with cramping and headaches.
I've had to discontinue medications because men can't tolerate the side effects. Mostly erectile dysfunction is a big thing.
Wow.
From
like that could be a societal benefit depending on the man.
You could try this different beta blocker, but to be honest, they all have this bit of a side effect. You know, give your body more time, see if if your
sounds like birth control to me.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just crazy to me, like what just, going back to the topic of trials, that like, there are so many things that have been tested on mostly men for like male driven outcomes or, objectives. But then for something that would benefit us all collectively, there are things where men would like never dare want to partake in that. And that's just like hysterical.
Well, and it's also interesting to me that like, I'm on a beta blocker, but like I'm more worried about my dick. Like,
but
because
it's the quality of life. So as a clinician, you tell patients these are the recommendations. Another extreme example is the recommendation to have an ICD implanted. It's a defibrillator implanted, like a pacemaker, but it shocks you if you go into a lethal rhythm. There are patients who have intense psychological reaction to that, like a PTSD of having a foreign body in their body. And we've had patients who get it and get shocked, and they're so traumatized by it that they ask to get it out.
Yeah, I mean, that seems more reasonable to me than stopping.
What I thought you were going to tell me is that men were opting in to get their heart shocked before they would opt in to a simpler medication that would make their dick soft. That's actually what I thought you were about to tell me.
No. What I was going to say is we do take into consideration quality of life. So if you're miserable and you're not living, I think of a puppy life when
Right. If
when it's
that's
time
your
to,
only hobby
put
is
your
your
puppy
dick.
down to sleep. If they're not living quality life, like, do you want to cut back on the dose and maybe increase something else that could help bring you the same protection?
Yeah.
Well, I also can't tell you how many dudes I know, and frankly, in the field that we work in, there's a few that have like passed away in the last 20 years, that, including some close friends that I know were on medication for cardiac issues, in which this was a side effect, and they countered it by, buying under the table dick drugs and then killed
Oh,
themselves
yep,
accidentally.
yep.
So, you do have to consider that, because men will be like, oh, I'm on the meds, but my dick. And
Mhm.
then, you've lost the plot. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
real consideration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me though, because I feel like by and large as women, we won't do all that. Like, so I had kind of the same issue you had, Maddie, like years ago. I was having the birth control, the pill was not doing what it needed to do for me. I wasn't getting the consistency in my cycle, like all of the things, right? And so when I went to the doctor, it was kind of the same thing, like not a lot of options. And she was like, well, what you can do is an IUD. And I was like, okay. And I remember Nancy and I talked about it, like, should I do the hormone one? And she was like, yeah, you should do the hormone one, because like you want the side effects that the hormones give. And it was the best thing that I ever did, because I had gained like 15 pounds with birth control. The IUD, all that went away. I didn't have any of the bloating. I didn't have any of the like phantom cycle, and I didn't have a period anymore. And it was the best thing. But there's other issues, I guess, if you can go off of the IUD and it can take longer for your body to get back in sync. But I mean, that's the thing. You have to like keep asking and asking and asking.
And know your options. And, I'm a big advocate for patients to come prepared. Yeah, do your own Google search. Come with some baseline knowledge about options that might be available to you and options that you think might work for you, and discuss those with your doctor. Take notes when you go
Right.
see your doctor,
Well,
et cetera. Mm-hmm.
and I think, what's your long-term plan? Like, I can't tell you how many friends I've had who, found the right guy at 40 or at 37, and they'd been on birth control for 20 years or 25 years. And no one ever told them that if you've been on birth control that long, it might take 6 months, it might take a year, it might take 18 months, it might take 24 months to regulate your hormones, even not on anything, to get pregnant. It's like not a switch that you just sort of flip. And I feel like we also don't have that conversation with women when they're considering options, because you may come to a moment where you're like, now's the time, and now I have this 2-year window. It might take you 12 months before your hormones regulate enough for you to get
Mm-hmm.
pregnant.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then on the flip side, like I have some people have told me that, the moment you go off the pill, just be careful, because you're going to have a hormonal surge and you can get pregnant off the bat. And I'm like, wait, so I could just get pregnant, or it could be years and years. Like, and I just will never know until the day comes. And I'm
It's
like,
so
Clear as
gray.
mud, clear as
It's
mud.
so
Super helpful.
unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gray. And and I meet young women who are healthy, very young in their 20s, and they can't get pregnant. And it's just, yeah. And are
Well,
we
good thing
lacking
we know how
research?
to grow men's hair and take men's hair from like their butt crack and put it on their forehead. Glad we know how to do that.
Is that what they do?
I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do. I mean, the hair has to come from somewhere.
I missed this jump. I'm like, wait, what?
That was
how did we get
visual.
to butt crack hair?
I'm just saying, like, we seem to have figured out how to deal with all men's issues. Like, we've seen
Yes.
with erectile dysfunction, we seem to have figured out how to take hair from one part of their body to put it on their forehead. We seem to have figured out like all of these different things, right? Even GLP-1s talking about that primarily, like a lot of men, right? And so like,
And this is all, just the evidence of, doctors primarily being men. So
right.
the research is going to be biased. They don't want to, it's just, this is what we see.
The
So we need more
patriarchy.
women in medicine. We need more women in academic institutions teaching, and focusing on these issues.
Do you see more women joining your field of work, Nancy, or do you feel you do?
Nursing.
Nursing.
Yes.
Okay.
Now there is more women physicians, and I don't know what's going to happen now, but we did have a surge of diverse women joining our practice, and
Okay.
and fellows, like our fellow group look colorful, and amount men and women. So there was attention to this
Yeah.
until recent changes. Yeah.
What recent changes are you alluding to?
I don't know. I heard some things.
She was like, "You're not going to get me got, Maddie."
But this is a good point to make, though, because I feel like previously, if we were going to give resources or give people places to go to try to find out more information about current clinical trials, or what drugs are currently being looked at by the FDA, is that information still prevalent, or have budget cuts and Doge and everything else? Because I think almost every guest that we've had in the past 4 months has talked about how cuts at NIH, cuts at CDC, cuts at NOAA, the weather control, cuts at all of these different agencies have really affected the work of professionals and clinicians and scientists. So is that a concern for you?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of studies that we were hoping for would get started. We lost funding. We lost research assistants because of the cuts, and we're not now. The PIs are worried, and they're figuring out how to get funding from private people, because they don't have the funding anymore. And there's so much that they're doing. There are so many diseases and conditions that they're trying to find cures for, and that's all paused now. We're going back, not forward.
And, from a resource constraint perspective, it's going to be challenging. But also, when I was reading up on, the NIH's role in clinical trials and in general, anybody in the public sector who is regulating pharma, they're the ones who are looking at these compliance rates in terms of, are you including a diverse enough participant base so that these results are credible and can be applicable to broader populations. And now I'm very worried about that, because I just don't think there's going to be a focus on that anymore. I mean, let's look at who's running our country right now. I think they really only care about whether drugs are working for them.
Yeah. So I would say, as a woman, know what organizations are out there where you can get help, representation information. There's the Society for Women's Research and Women's Health Research. That is the organization that helped pass the Act in '93. There's the National Institutes of Health Research on Women's Health. So there's a specific branch. There's Women Heart National Coalition for, this is one example, women with heart disease. So there are disease specific. There's also the FDA Office of Women's Health. So if you are, if you're advocating for your health, you want to advocate for your health. Let's say someone has a heart failure. Connect with the foundation that represents your heart failure, and they will have all the information about clinical trials, because pharma is also very interested in working with these organizations to get access to patients, or to get the information, even because patients don't know unless they ask.
It's interesting because, as you've been discussing pharma too, I think big pharma gets such a bad rap. And I think the influencer culture and all the misinformation online, and everything they're saying about how these drug companies are killing you, or they don't care about you, blah blah blah. I'm just I don't subscribe to that. For a while I was pretty susceptible to that kind of a narrative, because I had been so frustrated with my own experience with the medical world and not being able to get answers for my issues. But I just think that we all need to realize two things can be true. It can be true that certain companies are putting drugs out there that are not great for society, but it can also be true that there's a lot of companies doing amazing work and really helping people live better lives. And we just have to get out of this zero-sum game mentality around it.
And I think three things can be true. Both of those things can be true, and someone who is a good actor or a bad actor can have a bad outcome, because we're not actually considering in clinical trials the right things and the right diversity of people and the right application, right? Which is why having initiatives that ensure that we have women that, even though it's difficult, that we have uteruses and periods and could get pregnant, that we still actually understand how medications impact us and can help us, right? I mean, could be the best medicine in the world given to the wrong person, it won't matter.
Exactly.
And I think when you have those scenarios, it feeds into the conspiracy theorists. So really appreciate, Nancy, I know all that
And
you're
I think
doing.
there's huge accountability on the clinician side because,
Mhm.
there's this medication that can help with your shortness of breath, but it doesn't cure your disease. And you prescribe it. So it's borderline indicated, because people that prescribe things because they're borderline indication, or maybe it'll help with this or that, or it'll help with that side effect. I think there's a responsibility there to do safe medicine and high quality medicine with ethics. And it's also our responsibility to look for what's available out there for our patients.
Right.
Are there any research studies on this? Can I refer him to a specialist?
Yeah.
So a lot of it also falls on us. Pharma is, so where I work, we're very separate. We don't talk to pharma. We don't communicate with them. The old school thought of they would bring you lunch, that doesn't exist anymore. It's illegal. So we never see them. We interact with the medical science liaison, and this person is usually a physician, and he has nothing to do with the sales aspect of it. He's there just to explain the science, explain the results of the clinical trial, and help, first-time clinicians using a drug answer questions. And I do believe in collaborating with industry, because without them, we wouldn't have cures. We wouldn't have antibiotics.
Anything.
And we wouldn't have life-saving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, there are some, companies that want to oversell their drugs. And so, but as a clinician, you have to look out for your patients and advocate for them.
Yeah.
Hey, Nancy, I have a random side question. Are the same rules in place for pharmaceutical interactions with practitioners as there are for medical device sales, or can medical device
Same.
sales, so they're all samesies, we treat all the
But I
same?
think medical device sales, because they do come in and I do see them, but I think they might be medical science liaisons as well. So the people that show you how the technology works, they come into the ER and they help you connect the pacemaker, etc. I think the rules are probably the same.
I'm going to be so fascinated to hear more about that world. My brother just got a job at Johnson & Johnson for medical device sales, and he's moving to Atlanta, Georgia to go work there. And he's actually driving up to Sacramento as we speak right now with his girlfriend. And we're celebrating big boy job, and they're moving in together. And it's a fascinating world, though. I'm really keen to hear more about it from somebody who's working in it.
I love it. I value it. I love medicine. I love prescribing good medications. So I'm pro.
Yeah.
That's what I do for a living.
Right. And you're great at it. As we wrap up this episode, Nancy, if there's one or two, you shared some resources earlier, some organizations that we'll definitely link in the show notes for everybody listening. But if you had just kind of a 1 to 2 maybe pieces of advice, or a call to action for our listeners to take control of their health and learn more about clinical trials and how valuable the research being done is, what might those pieces be?
Yeah, I would say, are you happy with the care you're receiving, with, the way your symptoms are managed, your disease is being managed? Do you feel that there's something missing, or do you feel that the current treatment isn't controlling the disease? Then, be on the alert for new therapies. And clinicaltrials.gov will have not just open clinical trials currently enrolling, but those that will be enrolling in the future. So just staying informed. Yeah, staying informed is big, and going to your patient organization and just signing up with them for updates. They'll let you know when they have free genetic testing, for example, has come out through patient organization. So just stay connected and do research. It's okay to do research on the internet, but just be judicious as to where you're getting that research from.
Sources. Yeah.
Earlier, make sure that there are clinical trials backing whatever you are researching or looking into. And then to Adama's point, that it's peer reviewed and it's just gone through all the checks that information should.
Yes.
Correct.
Anyway,
Well, thank you so much, Nancy. It's always a pleasure. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us.
It was great having this discussion with you ladies.
We'd love to see you. We have to see you in person again soon.
I know, I miss you.
Yes. Well, thank you, everybody. If this episode made you think twice about the medications you take or the care that you might be getting, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a review, share it with us. You know how to reach us on Instagram. We're at EmpowHERment Pod, and we'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Nancy.
Big hug.